Today is September 26, 2019. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. Today on the agenda, we're going to go over, we're going to go through 1.17 planning. So the 1.17 release dates are by the 15th. We need to nail down the features that we're working on and have enhancement issues open for them and any KEPs merged for those features. By November 14th is code freeze. And then November 19th, docs must be completed. And then December 9th is the release. This cycle overall is shorter than normal because KubeCon is around late November, and then holidays are in December. So this cycle in general is shorter. And then I also want to discuss the face-to-face meeting. Excuse me. If there's anything else you want to discuss, please feel free to add to the agenda, and we'll take it from there. Okay, next let's move over to the planning spreadsheet. We moved over items from 1.16 that were not completed. And so let's go through those one by one. If there's any item that you think should be on here, feel free to go ahead and add to the bottom. You have the next 2 weeks to do that. If you think of something within the next 2 weeks, feel free to add to the bottom, and we can review that next time. Or if you want to, you could do it during this session as well. So first item here is CSI migration move to beta. This was planned for last quarter. We just barely missed it because there were some API changes required that required us to hold off. And so I think we can go ahead and get that in this quarter. We're doing something different here. We're also trying to assign API reviewers if there are API reviews required to make sure that that is accounted for as well. I think David, Chang, Deep are still the right people to work on this. If
yeah.
On the call, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all three of us will be focusing on this. The couple of new items I think we want to pick up for 117 is support disabling and basically tie in with the provider-less build flag that's also being introduced separately in Kubernetes. So provider-less will get rid of the entry plugins at a compile level, and this we are trying to introduce a stage before that build flag takes effect, so that we have more confidence that things will actually work when the entry plugins completely get wiped out, or rather compiled out.
Okay.
That's
what do you
one
mean by supporting disabling?
Exactly. And the other area is looking at the volume reconstruction work that was not done so far. So Cheng will be looking at that.
Got it. Okay. All right, thanks, Deep. Next item is CSI online offline resizing. This was moved to beta in the last quarter. I believe there's been some issues identified, and I guess the focus this quarter is to fix those issues. Mont, is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. We want to allow calling node expand volume on all the nodes where read-write volume is attached as read-write. For read-only handling, we need a spec change in CSI. That I have a proposal for that. I'm working on it, and yeah, that's the main of the issues actually, and we're trying to fix for 170.
Okay, and the node expand volume is to handle block better?
Yeah, to handle block better, block volume better.
Okay.
The raw block volume is better, yeah.
Cool. Next item is the CSI library, moving the Mount library to the external common repo. There was a lot of work done last quarter by Travis on this. We're going to continue chugging away at this. Travis, are you on the call by any chance? Okay, we are still committed to this, and as far as I understand, Travis will continue to work on it. Next item is per node volume attach limits. We are trying to get this to GA this quarter. I am concerned about how capable we are going to be of that. Fabio has been the one working on this. Fabio or Jan, are either of you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
You want to give an update?
I haven't started yet.
Okay. And then what do you think are the biggest kind of challenges?
I actually don't know.
Okay, no
I
worries.
have to look into this, yeah.
Fair enough.
I think that there are no as such outstanding challenge. There's some concerns about like how users will override these values that will be supplied by the drivers, and I think that's the only thing worth figuring out actually.
Yeah, I mean, what I remember was the issues around how I think AWS has some weird issues with how it calculates attachment limits. Instead of it being only volume-based, it takes into account all the resources, networking and other things, and calculates limits based off of that, which I don't know if we're capable of doing today. And then similarly, I think vSphere has some strange algorithm to calculate the limit as well. Those are probably things to think through as we go to GA. But otherwise, sounds good to me.
Yeah. Like very quickly, I spoke with Michelle, and I think it might be best to just make it easier for admin to override the limits rather than making the system intelligent, because there are just too many heuristics.
Got it.
To put it in a general framework. So,
thinking like a config map or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet, but we might have to figure it out a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I think that might be a reasonable approach. I'll look forward to whatever you guys come up with here. All right, next item is block volume support. We are keeping it in beta this quarter and addressing issues. Is that accurate? Anybody agree, disagree? And is Jan still the right person to work on it?
Probably yes. I'm still working on it, but it's quite slow pace. There are existing issues mainly with CSI implementation of block, and that's about it. Like there are a few issues. You can see the link.
Jan, is that specific issue still open? And is that the main one?
Yes.
Okay.
You can check the link there, and
yeah, I'm going to click on it as soon as I find it.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. Next item is the new design for volume permission handling. I don't think we made any progress there. Brad, or I don't think actually Jing is going to be able to work on it this quarter. Brad, could you pick up this item this quarter?
I think Brad is on PTO.
Got it. Do we have anybody else on the call who's interested in kind of leading the redesign of volume permissions in Kubernetes?
Yes, so we are working on it actually as a at least Brad, me, Jan, and I had a call with Jing last week about where she is with her and we are trying to see how we can unify both ASIL and Linux. But her design was more just about fixing the chon and chmod stuff, and we are also interested in fixing the chcon for ASIL Linux. So I think Brad is still the right person. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll leave his name down here, and then we can adjust time if needed. So this would be for volume permission, and then revisit the UID handling with volumes.
I had a quick question, Ben. Last time you mentioned that we might need to look into kernel changes. What was that about? I know there's a note in the
Oh, so I'm not super familiar with this issue, but my sense is that the underlying problem is that when you're in a container and the kernel is doing GID UID mapping, for the file system GIDs and UIDs, it needs to be configurable separately, so that if you run a container one day and root is UID 1 million, and then you run the same container the next day and root is UID 2 million, that the file system UID bits are the same. I think the problem is that they're not, and I need to look into exactly what's going on, but I think there's just no facility to sort of do UID translation on a like the file system UID GID bits in when you're running in a container, and that's why we have this problem, I think. So any attempt to like do chounds and stuff is just gonna lead us around in circles. If the kernel just did the mapping for us, then you could hide all that, and then the problem would go away.
Okay, so you're basically saying if the C group somehow allowed us to specify mapping, and then okay, I mean I'm pretty vague, but yeah, okay.
I mean, I could be talking out of my ass, but I suspect that that's what's going on, and I think that's where we should invest our effort to figure out how to fix it, rather than trying to actually muck with the bits on the file system, and to focus on any mapping layers that exist, or if there are none, then adding one.
Cool.
All right, thank you. I'm going to put down Brad's name for all three of these since they're very closely related. I think at a minimum, we should probably hit the non-recursive volume ownership issue since it's a performance issue. And then we could go from there. Next item, closely related, is file permission handling for Windows. Deep, are you still the right person to work on that?
Yeah, I'll need to sync up with Jing. That has unfortunately not happened, but we have a forum around CSI Windows now, so I'll ask.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Next item is volume expansion for stateful sets. So there was somebody from SIG Apps who was working on this or got a KEP approved. Hemant, is that accurate?
Yeah, so the KEP was approved by SIG Apps. It was approved by, I mean, I approved it, I LGTM'd it, but right now it's Jordan is reviewing it for API changes, and he has some comments open for it. And I think there's a open concern. It's already covered in the KEP itself, that and Jordan is saying it should be resolved before the KEP is implementable.
Okay, so it sounds like an alpha implementation this quarter is possible.
So Saad, could we go back to row 6?
Yes, hang on. Okay.
Sorry,
row 6. Yeah.
The block volume 1. That issue, I opened it up. It is closed. We fixed it in 1.16.
Oh, okay.
So it was a big rewrite, and it did merge, and it does fix the problem. So I'm not aware of any remaining issues.
I think that
sorry, go ahead.
The CSI block volume has some issues about like cleaning up. Right now, because like me, Michelle, and Jan were discussing, the thing is that map, the stage and publish both are done in the same operation, and one fails, the other one is like it just left it as it is, and the cleaning up handling is kind of ugly. So there's a PR outstanding that's pretty big, which kind of detangles and these two things so that they're called separately. So
we have the wrong issue here in the spreadsheet.
Yeah. This one. Yeah, can you?
If we can get the ones that we do need to fix, I'm curious to take a look at them myself.
I'm pretty sure that the link in the feature column is the correct one. Let me check.
Well, the CSI
the
block.
issue 74313 is closed. We fixed it in July.
Okay, I will check and I will update the link. We have a whole board on Kubernetes CSI project that tracks everything.
Do you have a link to that board?
I will update the spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. All right, moving on. Number 12, CSI in-tree read-only handling. This was an issue that's been open for a while. It is going to affect, I believe, clones more than anything else. John, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. So I came back to this last week, and do we have an issue listed for that, for the work that
There
we're
was
looking
an
at?
issue. Let me see if I can. I think it might have been attached to the old occurrence here.
I couldn't remember our conversation on this, to be honest.
There we go.
Ah,
Let me copy that over. Okay. Do you want to take a look at it and then maybe give us a confirmation next time on kind of feasibility and if you're the right person to work on it?
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. And then also for anybody else on the call, I am just assigning the features out to folks who've already committed to them. Feel free to jump in if you are interested in contributing to say, hey, I'm open and I'm willing to work on something. We'd like to increase the number of contributors we have. I know there's a handful of people in the SIG, Hamad, Jan, Ben, John, and Michelle, and a handful of others who work on a lot of stuff. And they have a lot of load and a lot of items. So if we can kind of load balance and get more people involved, that would be extremely valuable and help make the SIG more sustainable going forward. All right, next item here is CSI spec, alpha, beta, GA designation. This is kind of just generic CSI work. This is going to be ongoing. I think we can retitle this to CSI spec changes. And the biggest outstanding one is around volume expansion. Block volume expansion support, and then there is some changes that we're making for what was it? The bulk verify volumes attached. So we're anticipating a 1.2 version of CSI to be cut this quarter. And we're trying to get that in as soon as possible so that we can unblock the integration with Kubernetes. Next item is support containerized CSI node plugins in Windows with the storage proxy. There was a large design and a prototype done last quarter by Deep. Deep, is it correct to move it to alpha this quarter?
Yeah, so this work is in progress. We managed to get like a nice API compatibility layer in for the proxy itself in the CSI proxy repo. So Michelle reviewed it, that's in. So now we're working on the API groups to start building up the real proxy support for like file system disk and things like that.
Okay. So this is going to be huge and actually unblock CSI on Windows. So thank you for that.
Sure.
I think this should actually be prioritized higher as a P1. Do you agree?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Next item is snapshots to beta. I think that's another item we need to prioritize higher because it's been a very long time. There are a number of changes going into API changes, controller split, and I think those are the two big things. Metrics. Xing and Sean are working on those, and then Michelle can help review the API, and I can help review the code on that. Shing or Sean, do you want to add anything here?
I think you pretty much covered it. We just hope that we can get this in.
Yeah, that's the goal. So we'll try very hard to get this in. We'll call the priority on this one and take it from there. Next item is CSI Topology GA. Michelle has agreed to drive this. She's out of office this week, but I synced up with her before. I think this is going to be an important item to get us to feature parity within tree. So next item is CSI driver skip attach pod info GA. So this is a CSI driver object. There are some concerns about if we need to make any significant changes to the API or not. And if not, I think it should be fairly easy to get it to GA, but if we do, we might need to keep it in beta. So Hemant, are you the right person to work on that this quarter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once it's in beta, can we still make large API changes?
That's a good question. I think we have to do so in a backwards compatible manner for 2 releases before deprecation versus, or 6 months, 2 releases, versus if it's in alpha, you can just make it like immediately. No backwards compatibility required.
Okay.
Next item is improving CSI metrics. Sean, are you on the line by any chance? Okay. As far as I know, he's still committed to coming up with a design for this here. And I can also put down my name. I'm going to look into how we can surface some of the operational metrics in the CSI drivers up. Next issue is related to volumes. Issue related to assuming volumes or mount points. I haven't looked into this one, but 72347. I think we were looking for people to help with this last quarter. We weren't able to find anyone. It is important for CSI ephemeral volumes. Anybody on the call interested in helping? Okay, we're going to leave that unassigned until we can find someone to help with that. If ephemeral volumes for CSI are at all important, there might be an area where you can help contribute. Next is a very large design, volume snapshot namespace transfer. John, are you still interested in working on this? And what do you think an appropriate target for this quarter would be, design or a alpha implementation?
So I think, so I'm still interested. I've actually also got some interest from other folks to help out, so that's good. I think the main thing is an alpha would be great. I don't know if it's realistic.
Sure.
What I would like to do though is within the next couple of weeks, if we could finalize on our objective in terms of the API and agree. And what I mean by that is agree that even though we're doing a generic API for it, we're not actually doing it with the intent of requiring an implementation for the other resources. I think if you look at Smarter Clayton's comments and Tim's comments, I think that might be causing some confusion.
Okay.
So I would just like to clear that up and figure out exactly what we want to do, and then we can just go do it, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And we are planning a face-to-face meeting the day before KubeCon in November, I believe November 18th. I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end of this call. I think this will be an important design to discuss there. So if we have something kind of more fleshed out, we can present it to the wider community there.
Okay.
Just for visibility and discussion. All right, thank you, John. Next item is CSI Volume Health. We still have Nick Wren assigned to this. I need to confirm. I don't think he's on the line because I believe he's in China and this is a weird time for him. So I'll confirm with him offline to see.
Yeah, I can double check with him.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think he is still interested, but we need to sync up. I think this one would also be a good topic to discuss during the meetup.
Yeah, that'd be great. And what I'll do is I'll put together an agenda doc where people can start listing items that they're interested in discussing, and we can add this there as well. Next item is Volume Group API. This is something that we've kind of pumped the brakes on. We should probably pick it up soon. I think having it a lower priority, P3, is still fine, and design for this quarter would be fine. Xing, are you still interested in helping drive that?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll leave that, and then we can probably do design discussion separately to carry that forward.
Yeah, sure.
Next item is the generic data populator model. This is the idea that we want to be able to decouple the component that fills a empty volume with data from the storage system. So today, if you look at snapshots, if you look at clones, the assumption is that they're pre-filled with data at provision time, but the thing that's filling them with data is the storage system. And so we want to allow for a model where the storage system still just provisions an empty volume and something else comes in and fills it with some data before the user uses it. And you can imagine something like a GitHub repo or a Docker image populator. And the tricky bit here is, how do you ensure that the PVPVC doesn't go into normal usage, but is available for the data populator pod to use. John was leading the effort here. Andrew Large on our side had a lot of really great ideas on how we can kind of seamlessly do this. I'll probably connect him to John. John, are you still interested in helping drive this design?
I think if Andrew's interested in taking it, then
yeah,
that would be fine with me.
I think he has ideas. I'm not sure if he's interested in driving it. But let's put down all of our names and we'll see whoever takes a bite.
Okay.
This will be another good one for discussion at the face-to-face because it's a fairly large design that affects a lot of components. All right, next item are CSI drivers. We've got NFS, iSCSI, Fiber Channel, and Flex. For NFS and iSCSI, both of them have standalone repos already, and they have code in those repos, but we need to do image building, testing, CI/CD documentation to actually make them usable. For Fiber Channel and Flex, they're currently in a common repo, and we want to split that out and kind of do what we did with SCSI and NFS for those. Methusen was assigned to work on the NFS one. Methusen, are you on the line by any chance?
He was a intern in our team, and I think he went back to university.
Okay. So is anybody on the call interested in working on these generic CSI drivers? They are important for the community at large and maybe important to specific companies as well. So if anyone's interested, please speak up.
So I'm not volunteering for any more of the, the drivers, but I did want to raise a conversation I had with T. Hansen last week. He had an interesting proposal about modifying some of these a little bit. So rather than just offer the library to make the connections and stuff like that, the helper libraries, he had talked about actually having a base, for example, iSCSI driver. So basically all of the node operations would be implemented in a common thing that you would just deploy, and then you would only have to implement the controller side. I just wanted to raise it here as something that I think maybe we should talk about and investigate. Initially, I wasn't really too hip on the idea. I didn't think it was that great. His argument is mostly they don't want to write Golang, so that's not really a good argument in my opinion. But it might be something worth considering how we architect.
And so just to make sure I understand correctly, currently there's two models that are supported. One is you get the mount code for NFS or iSCSI or Fiber Channel as a library that you can import, and then you write Golang to write the rest of your driver, including the controller and provisioner. And the second model is you get a very stripped down version of these drivers that only knows how to do the mount, doesn't know how to do provision. And so I guess the proposal here is a third model, which would be have the mount code, a driver that can do the mount capabilities be shipped as a binary that you can combine with a controller that's standalone.
Correct. That's the gist of it. There were some details he couldn't quite sort out for me.
Okay.
Personally, I'm personally not a fan of the idea. I think the last thing we need is yet another path. But it's not fair for me to make that decision on my own. So I wanted to raise it to the rest of the group. So.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's willing to volunteer and work on stuff, we can entertain all the ideas.
There you go. I guess that's the best answer, yeah.
Hands on keyboards are the most important thing. So if anyone on the call is interested in working on these in any capacity, please speak up now, or feel free to reach out to me offline and I can connect you to the right folks. Otherwise, for the time being, these will continue to be sadly neglected.
So today the situation is like if you create a PV object with the PV source appropriately populated, these drivers will pick it up, right? And make it available to the pod as a node plugin?
In some capacity, yes. I think the problem is that the driver's code is there, but it hasn't really been tested. We don't actually build images. So how do you deploy the driver, that kind of thing.
Got it.
So, at least for NFS and iSCSI. And then for Fiber Channel and Flex, there was an initial attempt when we were first doing CSI to build these out, and they haven't really had much love since then. So the first step there is getting those drivers moved out into their own repos, and then doing the same set of things that we're doing with NFS and iSCSI, which is building the images, testing, all that kind of stuff.
Got it.
Okay, next is a couple of cross SIG issues that we are interested in. One is PVC created by stateful set will not be auto-removed. There was somebody on this call who brought this up at the beginning of the last quarter. I believe their name was, let's see, Gary Seidman. I don't know if they're still on the call. But if anybody on our call, on this call, is interested in helping shepherd that work and work with SIG apps, I'd be happy to put your name down. And the problem here is how PVCs are deleted for stateful sets. So stateful sets will create PVCs, but they don't remove them. And the reason for that is that it tries to be very conservative, especially because if you have scaled down and then immediately scale back up, it doesn't want to have to recreate a whole new PVC. It'll just adopt the old PVC. But at the very least, we should do a better job of when you delete the stateful set, eliminate the PVCs and not require a user to go and manually delete all the PVCs. That's pretty painful. So if anybody's run into this and thinks it's painful and wants to shepherd it, please speak up. Okay, we'll leave that unassigned for now. Next item is execution hook for application snapshot. This is something that SIG apps kind of took the lead on. Xing, are you still interested in shepherding that work as well?
Yeah, I hope, but don't know who from SIG is interested in this. So let me pin Inan about this.
Yeah, perfect. I think Yinan would be the right person to help drive that.
Okay.
All right, next item is CSI improve handling from recovery and timeout errors. Hemant, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so there's a general problem I sort of set out to fix just for like mount, like stage and publish, but it's a problem in general in Kubernetes. Like in kubelet side, if you try to stage a volume and then the stage operation times out, and user deletes the part, then that part that mount is forever lost. It's not cleaned up properly. Similar thing could happen on publish also. Similarly, like when you unpublish a volume and unpublish operation times out, that has to be handled correctly. So it's like, and similarly like unstage has the similar problem, and the raw block devices have similar problem, but their code path is different. They have to be fixed in similar way. So I have a PR open for that fixes just at least right now. It just fixes like mount device and mount volume code path, but I'm working unpublish or an unstage also. But I think I need help fixing the raw block cleanup, and it's just a problem that has to be fixed in kubelet as overall.
And the problem here is that when this code starts, it times out, fails, it doesn't do any cleanup. And then the caller assumes that it failed and nothing was done, but in fact there was a partial mount there.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
okay, yeah, this seems like a pretty important issue. I think we should probably prioritize this higher as well. P1 seems reasonable, or P2?
I think it's P1. I put down some code, but Jan has some comment, and it's kind of becoming much bigger in scope than I originally thought it'll be. So, and yeah,
okay.
but
and then Jan, would you be the right person to help review that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's pretty complicated.
Cool. And cool. Sounds good. Okay, I think that is all the items that we have. There's still a lot of items, and I'm still concerned about people who have multiple items assigned to them, especially given that this is a short quarter. So please take a look at your assignments, and if in 2 weeks' time when we meet again, if there's something that you can't commit to, please feel free to update us, and we'll see if we can either drop the commitment for this quarter or find somebody else to work on an item. So that's all I have for 1.17 planning. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about in terms of 1.17 planning? Okay, so now the date to remember going forward is October 15th. So if you have a feature assigned to you, please make sure that it has a enhancement issue opened. And if it requires a KEP, that the KEP is merged and approved by that date, October 15th, 2 weeks basically. Moving on, looks like Deep has a PR that needs attention. Support for Windows, iSCSI, Flex Volume.
Yeah, so this is basically in the target D repo that's still under Kubernetes Incubator. So basically what we wanted to do from the SIG Windows side was, since the CSI support is still being developed and it's in alpha, Microsoft released a couple of Flex Volume scripts to support iSCSI and SMB. And this adds the support for that Flex Volume script in the target D provisioner.
I see. Okay.
Just wanted a code review on it, kind of thing.
Got it. And who owns the target D directory, do you know?
I think Jan was suggested by the bot.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if Kubernetes Incubator is still there, or the target itself should be moved?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, we can follow up offline on that. I can poke Jing to help review as well. And
Okay,
then,
great.
John, if this is anything that you're familiar with, feel free to jump in as well.
Thanks.
Cool. Anything else in terms of design reviews or PRs that need attention? Okay, so moving on. Next item is face-to-face. We're kind of overdue for a face-to-face meeting for the SIG for a while. Last one was, I think, almost a year ago in 2018, October 2018. So this time we had a couple of options. Ben and NetApp were graciously offering to host a face-to-face on the East Coast. We polled the SIG last time to see what people thought and whether they preferred doing it on the East Coast in October or at KubeCon. The result was that we had a lot more people wanting to have these face-to-face at KubeCon. So I reached out to the KubeCon organizers and found us some space at the Marriott Marquis, which is right next to the event center where KubeCon is located. The event is going to be on Monday, November 18. This is the day before the conference. It's going to be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's a full day event. Keep an eye out for an email. I'll show you. I'll send that out shortly, detailing how you register for this face-to-face meeting. Please note that it does require a registration for KubeCon itself. So if you haven't registered for KubeCon, please go ahead and do that. And then once you've done that, you can follow the directions that I'm going to send to register for the face-to-face as well. And then I'll also share an agenda document where people can start putting in items that they're interested in. There will be food, I believe, at the very least lunch, and I believe breakfast as well, and coffee and tea served throughout the day. And that is all. Any questions, concerns, comments on that?
So this does not require registration to the contributor summit anymore, right?
Correct. This is decoupled from the contributor summit. The contributor summit is on the same day in the same hotel, but we have a separate space, and it is not required to register for the contributor summit to attend this. We have a separate registration.
Okay, thanks.
But it is required to register for the KubeCon conference itself.
Okay.
So I'm hoping I'm going to see a whole bunch of faces that are on the call there. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I will send out that email shortly. All right, anything else anybody wants to talk about? All right, then we will end with 12 minutes back in your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.